Welcome back to the late game, episode 39. Co-host in control and Destiny. Joining us, our guests Zombie Grub and Morrow. We're continuing to discuss the macro mechanics. Talked quite a bit. I think the majority of the first segment, guys, was about the macro mechanics. It's a big change. It's a big deal. A lot of big opinions on it. I'm going to open up the floor now to anyone with any specific idea they want to talk about, idea they want to share with the rest of the panel and you guys. So we'll start off with Zombie Grub, just because, you've been a little quiet, for this topic. Is there any, I guess, idea you want hashed out between these guys, or just your own personal thoughts on the macro changes?
No, not specifically on the macro changes. I just say that I really agree with Jeff that like everything that's like it is a much faster paced game. Like with like lower scale units, like you really get maxed out, and expanding doesn't feel like it's like a chore or whatever. It just feels like StarCraft 2. And that we've cast some double harvest games
Hmm.
specifically, and it really doesn't feel that different. But it could be because not a lot of people played it. But I heard the main concern about Double Harvest is that it literally does not work in the engine. Like they couldn't, they try to get the closest to what they were thinking of, like the Team Liquid guys and the programmers they were using, but they couldn't do it. So it was almost like null to even try. So so just throw it out there.
All right. Morrow, any final thoughts? Any other thoughts? Any particular item you wanted everyone else to discuss?
I just want to say I think double harvest is an obvious step from here, at least in my opinion. I think inject larva. I think that change is really stupid. It's really dumb and retarded, and I can't believe he even came up with that. And removal of chrono boost. I know it removes strategy, but I think it's actually healthy for Protoss as a whole to have some of its strategy removed. Mule, I'm sort of indifferent. There are a couple of good things I like about it. Like Jeff mentioned, you don't have that unnatural SCV sack in super late game. You don't have these SCV pulls. Hopefully, we don't see that anymore. And,
Well, you could.
having worse scans is also a good thing. So I think removal of Mule is gonna be good in the long run.
I think one thing I like, uh, if you look at the macro mechanics themselves, right? Chrono Boost was a very strategic decision, right? It was, what am I going to do with this Chrono Boost? And then you employ it, right? With the mule, it was just kind of mindless. Just, I'm ready for some mules, or no, I think they have DTs. I'm going to save them for a scan, kind of thing. Some strategy in that, but for the most part, it was just click, 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 click. You're done, right? For inject, if you look at, and this, where I'm going with this is the discussion about how macro mechanics impact you as a player, like what they mean for you as a player. If you look at inject, yeah, you can discern a different, a foreigner versus a Korean with, how just on point, no matter what is going on in the game, how on point they are with their injects. But at the same time, inject is just a chore. It's just a click, 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 click. You know what I mean? There's no. Are you? Am I?
I, I always have to, like, I hear you, and I don't necessarily disagree, but like, and then I have to tone myself down because, and this is not for some people. It's like, just last night when I was studying the Liquipedia, as I do every night before I go to sleep for 5 hours. Like, I'm not trying to advertise me, but to be honest, I'm a huge fan of StarCraft in almost every single fucking way. And like, as you were breaking those things down, it's like Mule is kind of mindless, except that energy is critical. In TVP in particular, if a lot of times there's these amazing moments where the Protoss waited until they dropped their mules, or the Terran was smart and didn't drop the mules and saved up the energy. And like, there is a little bit of counterplay and interaction there that I really like. Chrono Boost, Chrono Boost is a little bit softer. Like, there's really hardcore timings where it's like, how the fuck does parting just have 5 more units? Well, his Chrono Boost is really perfect. But for the most of us, that was more of like a soft kind of, I'm going Oracle, Chrono, 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 Chrono. Like, it's just like, that was a little bit more on the shallow end. Yes, there was tactical play, but it's more shallow. And then Zerg and Jex, that is probably the most shallow, but still, there was some cool play with like, well, I need 2 or 3 forward queens. I'm that cool Zerg that doesn't necessarily spam 19 tumors when he doesn't need 19. He spams 14 and has 2 transfuses for that critical timing tech that's coming. So I'm not trying to type it up as like the most amazing Brainiac play ever, but I did actually like the function of those things. That being said, I'm okay with them being removed for a lot of the reasons Morrow said, for a lot of the reasons Zombie Group said. Like, I think we can all agree that it's not that this game was like, nobody was like, they didn't like grab the box start and go, oh boy, I heard Chrono Boost is sure fun. Like nobody was doing that, but it was kind of a big part of how we got to the builds that were really fun and how we did those things. So if you remove them, that's okay. But I feel like there should be a little bit more thought. Like I kind of like one of the ideas they're proposing where Chrono Boost is not gone. It's just maybe less duration and higher energy, so it's not nearly as the same impact, but you could use it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're a little bit more critical. Maybe we do remove the mule, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe we just decrease its efficiency. So it is like I pulled the boys because I didn't do my research. I just hopped into Legacy of the Void. And you're like, well, I dropped 5 mules. I should have a great economy. And you're like, oh, God, why is this only barely better than if I had 5 SCVs? And like little changes like that kind of thing. The inject one, I'm not sure about. I feel like the inject one is only bad because Chrono Boost and mules were so integral. Like going down to 2 automatically. Yeah, the Zerg gets to do... Like, the Zerg is the most busy race, by the way, of everyone. So of all the changes, it should be Zerg that gets, in terms of macro mechanics, probably the slightest slap on the wrist. But it becomes a bigger one because of how hard that was done to Protoss and Terran. So I'm glad that this is happening in the beta. It's obviously very controversial, but I think people should spend time playing it and then voicing their opinions as unpsychotically as possible so that they can possibly be heard. And if you do that, Blizzard has shown they'll do big-ass fucking changes and they'll dial things back too. So hopefully that's the case. We'll see.
One thing I want to ask you, Jeff, in QXC's article, the big point he makes is, you get to focus on other things in the game when you're not focused on those macro mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Do you see Foreigners having a boost in success if Blizzard does move forward with removing those kind of mechanics? So I'm not saying, oh, well, they removed injects, so now Foreign Zergs are fucking awesome. But now if it becomes...
Nope. Simply put, no. StarCraft is still a game where if you make one aspect of it easy, the other aspects were hard enough that they will be filled up. Like, you would have to make StarCraft so fucking basic and simple, and then even then it would just be like, a bullet in a chamber. It'd just be luck that someone did better than the Korean, because they're putting in more time, they have better practice partners, they have better facilities. Like, we all know the reasons. We don't need to go down that train. So in what world does StarCraft, a very difficult game to play, to become in favor of foreigners who are putting in less time, having worse practice partners, less impetus, less history, like all those things? In what world do they become better? We make the game has a pop-up that's like an American history question. And it's like, who's the 43rd president? Most Americans would get it wrong anyways, but they have access to figuring that out or some shit. And Koreans like, I have no idea.
Yeah, so
that's the only world.
Right. The thought behind it was, if you're just thinking, a lot of the game now comes down to strategy and what you're going to decide to do more than just strategy on top of that solid foundation of macro mechanics. Does that open the door for a few more foreigners to come through?
I mean, maybe. I'm not gonna. No one can give a scientific 100% answer here, but what I would just tell you is, in my experience, because I've been the guy at the beginning of StarCraft 2, I was on all kinds of interviews and shows where I was like, with multiple building select and auto mine and all these things that used to really hold us back, foreigners should do a little bit better. And guess what? I wasn't necessarily wrong, because if you hold it to the standard of what Brood War was, where foreigners were lauded as gods if in the round of 32 WCG they took a single game off of I Love Uve or some shit, who was very good but not the absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
They were actually untouchable in Brood War. And in StarCraft 2, we've had foreigners win tournaments. It's extremely infrequent. It's obviously very rare, but it has happened, and I think that is...
I don't know if that necessarily
absolutely.
is partly because the game is easier, though, but the culture is a lot different, too, right? Like, to be fair, there really was no foreign Brood War scene. Like honestly, compared to what we have today and compared to what the Korean scene was in Brood War, there was not really a foreign Brood War scene, I don't think. Right?
I mean, yes, there was.
I mean...
There absolutely was. There was very much so players that traveled and played. If we're comparing it to the pro gaming houses of foreigners now, of course not. No.
It was absolutely minuscule. Like, I was several orders of magnitude off of what it is today. Although I wouldn't necessarily disagree that maybe making the game a little bit easier helped, maybe. But I think the question that Lycan is posing is, the question is basically, do you think that they're instilling skill ceilings or lowering the skill ceiling of StarCraft 2, right? And with that, I agree with what you're saying in that I don't think that we're at a point now where it's like, okay, well, you only need 152 APM in order to play a perfect ZVP. Like, you can do absolutely everything there is to do in the game now. Like, there's always going to be other things that people can do And players that practice more will be rewarded by practicing more, by being able to do more actions and more things that, confer some kind of advantage on them. And that's why the Koreans, have always...
Well, if that was the question, then I would tell you Legacy of Void is harder. Is it just Destiny, or is it...
Yeah, he's breaking up.
Foreigners.
Legacy of Void is
I
actually
don't think
a much...
Now that we've gotten
we can't understand you, Steven. Stop.
rid of these things, foreigners are magically going to be able to catch up to...
We didn't get any of that, but Legacy of the Void is a significantly more difficult game than Heart of the Swarm. So I think what Blizzard's trying to do, like especially when Legacy of the Void beta first came out, everyone's like, "Holy fuck! You mine out your base in like 5 minutes, 5 actual minutes, by the way," which is one of the more sensible changes. But I do not think they're making the game so much easier that foreigners are going to do a lot better in Legacy of the Void. I think it's going to be really cool to see what people do with all these multi-purpose units and these small fights and these more micro-intensive games. But I think Koreans are still going to dominate.
Okay. Jeff, any final thoughts on the macro changes?
Oh, I just gave a whole bunch. I think that's good.
Okay.
Any final thoughts? No, I think that's said all there is.
All right, cool. All right, guys, let's move on.
Can I say one last thing? I actually had one idea for Edict. No. This is good. So I think it, like I said, I really hate Inject, but I understand why they would want to remove it. I think there's a middle ground here that's good, and I think that would be to bring back Inject to be not auto cast, but remain as 2 larvae. And I think hatcheries themselves should spawn larvas at a quicker rate. So all these terrible Zerg players around the world could still go by playing their games without having the constant force that just tells them they need to inject all game long. Nothing else is important compared to inject. And at the same time, you can still have all these Zerg players edge out just by playing a macro game. Like all these good players getting rewarded for having good mechanics, even if there's not anything happening in the game. And I think that's really important that the better player can get ahead without anything actually happening in the game. So that's my suggestion, what they should actually do with Inject.
Okay.
I guess to kind of add on to that, there's not anything necessarily wrong with there being a mechanics check in a game. Like if you're very mechanically able, like a lot of people I think have that idea, especially running around on Reddit. They're like, oh well, this is just needless busy work to make the game harder. I mean, to some extent, some things probably are, but that's not necessarily a negative thing. That a player can build mechanics and then be rewarded for said mechanics. Like.
No, that's the reason why I play StarCraft and not Hearthstone.
Yeah, not another kind of like StarCraft is like the real-time strategy part of real-time strategy is really important. It does happen in real time, and if you take away like all of the mechanics checks, then it's just a strategy game. Like at that point, you might as well just play like like a board game or something. Because if you remove all the mechanical aspects of it, like what are you even playing at that point?
Right.
Yeah, I think the best StarCraft 2 would be a StarCraft 2 where it's actually too hard to do everything, so you have to
decide
spend your time like wisely. You can actually build your own persona around what you're actually spending time on and focusing on, and having a really high skill cap in each and every department. So seeing them go away from macro mechanics, saying, well, that's not interesting because this is not what we see on TV when we're watching the game. I think that's really dumb.
Sure.
All right, we're gonna move to the next topic. Hell, It's About Time went down this weekend. The crowdfunded tournament run by Base Trade TV, Zombie Grub. We're gonna run this by you first, of course, because you were one of the co-hosts, one of the co-conspirators, alongside Graham. How did you feel the event went overall?
So people online might disagree, I guess, but the event was like really fucking awesome for us. The crowd was really awesome. The finals ended up being perfect, even though it was a ZVZ. All the casting ran really smoothly. We had like a really nice production company that was always helping us out. All the technical problems, like the first day, probably like that was based on like preparation not being as good as it could have been, but everything else was just like we like seriously could not have stopped it. The venue had problems and Twitch had problems because there was like 3 other huge events going on. So I have a hard time actually even thinking about what it was like for the online experience. I just know that offline was amazing, and what we did with all the people that came and hopefully made them feel like VIPs, and the VIPs even more like VIPs, was our goal, and we did it. So yeah, yes.
All right. So is there any feeling of, okay, we're going to go on to do another one after this?
We don't want to make any promises, but there are definitely feelings of we want to do another one, and we're gonna make like a post, basically like a breakdown, I guess, like Total Biscuits breakdown after his like Shoutcraft, and also just like pitfalls and stuff that we ran into, and ideas for what we can do for a future event. Basically, all I have to go on right now for a potential future event is probably USA, and then probably sticking to the kind of in between Homestory Cup and a bigger event, like the perfect sandwich right there, with only like 200, 300 guests and a smaller venue and whatnot. So,
All right. Jeff, Morrow, Steven, did any of you guys get a chance to check out the event this weekend?
I'm not trying to troll, but every time I turned it on. It was in between games or it was downtime. So I'm sure, I know it was like rough day one, but for me it was like some kind of conspiracy of bad luck or something like that. But I did want to see it, and then I read all the comments, and obviously having been a part of some of the, I was there. I was one of the first guys to put on the NASL, and our first show was one of the most shit shows you could ever see in your entire fucking life. Like, we had tarp background sound issues. The computers were like timing sync. We cast off of replays. Like everything that could be bad and go wrong was. So I know those feels, and I'm not saying this because that's what happened to your event. I'm just saying I know how hard it is to put on an event. But to rally it back and have a good experience, and especially if the people there were having a good time, which is always kind of a weird thing too, because like they're the people that traveled, paid money, and attended, but in esports, they're dwarfed like 15 or 20 to 1 by, or more, 100 to 1 by the people that are online. So it's kind of a weird, like, you want the people online to be as happy as absolutely possible, but the people that are there are the ones that are paying and contributing more directly, so it's kind of a weird spot. But that's all I can offer. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see a whole lot, but good job having the guts to do it and executing it. And it's too bad Jaedong didn't win. That was the biggest complaint I have. Fucking idiots. Why should have had Jaedong win.
Did you get you haven't had, I guess, had a chance to watch the VODs for his last series?
I actually did see some of the VODs for the last series. A lot of gambling. That's shit. Jaedong ZBZ is just kind of like, it's really exciting, but it's just fucking crazy. Like sometimes just absolutely shut down. And Hyun's beat him the last few times too. Like I think he's got Jaedong's number pretty good. He seems to beat him every time.
Yeah, just straight up Jaedong said he didn't feel good versus ZVZ, versus Hydra, and then he beat him, and was still afterwards was like, no, I still don't think I have good ZVZ. So going to the finals, making it to the ace match, I guess was still pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was an exciting series. I actually had to leave during the last game. Like they just started it, and then I got a tweet saying that Jaedong lost, but it was pretty exciting. And what, 3 out of 4 of those games were 6 pool from
yes, 4
from Hyun
out of 7.
Yeah,
they were 8 pools.
8 pools. Sorry. So yeah, it was pretty awesome series. Let me say from a spectator's perspective, it was really awesome. Bay Street TV did everything right as far as taking care of the guests. I don't know how much fucking pizza you guys bought or who bought that pizza, but
$400 worth.
there were just piles, twice as tall as myself, of pizza boxes under that table. I can't remember. Either way, they bought a lot of food. The day that I arrived was Saturday. They had an ice cream truck, and that dude, like, I thought he'd be there, and it was one of those things where everyone goes and gets the ice cream and then he disappears. That guy was there almost the entire day, and there were just people constantly going back and forth getting ice cream and slushies and all kinds of shit like that. The setup was really cool. They had some Carbot drawn things that sat behind the players, and whenever the race changes the player, they'd put that player, and they had one for each color, so it was really cool. The VIPs got to sit in the, I guess if you divided the audience by 2, the VIPs were lined with, what are those chairs called? I can't remember. They're like DX Racer chairs or something like that, that people got to sit in, so that was really nice. And then I like the couch in the middle. It was like that real personal kind of interview atmosphere. And then everyone was just really friendly. It was kind of like the reason I enjoy going to these events is because you get to sit there and meet, people from the community and all that, and people from the industry. And it was kind of like that was an emphasis because everyone was so close together in such a smaller venue. There were a lot of people, getting autographs, getting to talk to people that they normally wouldn't get to talk to. The player area was nice. So I think overall, the event was done really, really nice. And I hope you guys definitely do another one. Did you have any final thoughts just about people you worked with, or Livy? You guys did work with Livy and Crank and all that. Like,
Yeah.
any final thoughts, shout outs, or things you want to say, I guess, about the event?
I already went over that. The casting ended up going really smoothly, at least in my opinion. It was a little worrying because I would have to lead with people that I usually don't have to like solo cast with them. Basically, Rifkin wasn't there, right? But it ended up going really nicely. Me and Livia had a blast casting all those TVZs, and like we certainly want to do another one and improve upon it, especially for the online audience. But there's a lot of things you have to figure out first. So
How did Crank pan out? Because I'm a fan of him as a player and everything, but as far as a personality, it seemed like a really weird choice.
So Crank has like been casting with us for a while on Base Trade TV, and he was always really funny, and people always found like he really had an accent right, but he was for the most part understandable, and it almost added like the cuteness effect to him. So when we asked, he was a little hesitant because he doesn't like that his English isn't the best. He specifically asked to cast more leading up to the event and like really studied English. Even during the event, he actually just straight up told us like, "Oh, I'm not really feeling very confident right now. Could I maybe like wait till tomorrow to cast?" I think that was like the Friday one, so that's why he had a little bit less time there. And but he was like an amazing experience to work with because he was a pro gamer. At the end of the day, he would call things like Seed versus Hydra, like absolutely like first 5 minutes. Oh, this is what he's gonna do, and this is why it's a good idea. Like he did his job really well, and it was fun. It was goofy. That's what Base Rate TV allows. I mean, I wish the cameraman could have gotten a shot of his, Olivia, Oli Moly, just like holding a sign up saying like "Be louder" right next to us at the casting desk to remind him. It was fun.
That's awesome.
Cool. So yeah, it was a great event. I wish I could have stayed longer to enjoy the stuff and been there for Friday for the open bracket. I would have played and happily had my shit pushed in, but alas, was not able to. So it was a good event. I hope you guys do run another one. It was definitely well done. Let's move on now to one thing I want to talk about. This will be our last topic. I watched Pro League the other day, and someone tweeted a picture of a Jin Air Greenwing jet that looked really, it had a sad face on it, and I retweeted it, and I thought maruined because Maru lost again in Pro League. And what I want to talk about, we're going to pitch this one to Maro first. As a pro gamer, the tilt cycle, right? You go out there, you're in, you're in great form, you're winning tournaments, or you're placing high in a lot of tournaments, and then you start doing poorly, right? I imagine this can come from multiple aspects. One thing that people are just, they don't talk about as often is the human aspect. You're human, you go through X, Y, and Z throughout the entire bracket. Those all add up to your performance as you continue through. Every loss, every bad decision, everything you do, it takes a lot of mental fortitude to keep going. So as a pro gamer, let's say you're at the top of your game and then you start losing. Is the tilt, or first of all, do you notice that you start losing because people have figured you out because you haven't adjusted your style, or is it because you have taken a mental hit and you're now playing differently because of it?
Well, it's different for every player, right? For me personally, I never had much mental issues at all. So whenever I would go into one of those periods when I start losing, I immediately assume that it's because people figured me out. Another thing to keep in mind is that whenever a foreigner does really well, he usually goes to like every single event, and this really hurts you in the way that everyone gets to see exactly how you play, and you don't get as much time to practice either. So it's bad in both of those ways. So I'm not sure why it would just go badly for him all of a sudden for Mara, but he's always been kind of a shaky player doing special strategies and so on. And his style overall has been very him. It's not like an overall Taron style. When you watch his play, it's like very specific that you're watching him, and that's so I would guess that it's mostly players are starting to figure him out, But I mean, after you go on a losing streak, like if you lose straight for like 1 month, could very well be that anyone could start tilting from there, and then you just start losing.
Jeff, you also, were pro.
Yeah.
In your personal experience, did your lulls after a high point, were they often caused by, just opponents being wise to your ways, or was it a personal?
So I'm not going to speak from experience because unfortunately for me, I did not have a tyrannical period of time where people were having to adjust to my playstyle. It was always me, the underdog. But these things can happen for a multitude of different reasons. The Korean is a little bit different because Asmaros, well, one thing that, like, when MC he'd win like 3 tournaments but then lose like the next several, or we've even seen this with Jaedong. Like, these guys are on a plane half the week and then they're at a tournament the other half. They're not practicing that entire time. And as Maro said, they're advertising what their current meta is and what they think they should be doing playstyle-wise. So it all kind of works against them. And some people have worked their way around it, like, ironically, I just mentioned it, but MC would still win tournaments because his force fields were so fucking on point and his balls were the size of small planets. Like, he was a good combination of danger in a tournament. For Maru, who's centered in Korea, not really traveling, I don't have any specific answer for it other than I would guess it's either, a string of luck. Like, this is still a game where we don't have Bonchwas. We don't have those guys that are winning 10 tournaments in a row at all because the game's just kind of close that way. Or it's also people getting good intel on him and knowing about what he's thinking about doing and then countering it. So it's just some combination of that.
Steven, do you think it's good for the game that we don't have, or it's a sign of a well-designed game that we don't have those Bonjwas that can figure it out and then go through months and months of domination in every tournament they play?
I mean, I don't know. That's a really hard question. I mean, I kind of liked the idea that there were always, like, I think Bonjwas, I think people like. I thought that was a good thing. But I don't know if it's necessarily bad that they're not there, right? Like, everybody in Brood War, knew, like, Stork, Flash, Bisu, like, all of these names, were so well known. And even coming over to StarCraft 2, like, people, that reputation, especially, like, a Flash is still kind of carried over. We had a little bit of it with like, MVP and ST, especially MVP in the GSL. I don't know, is it a bad thing or a good thing? I think it's really hard to say.
Okay.
I think it's cool for the legend. It builds up really cool stuff. Like, there's, your Boxer, Nada, I Love Uv. Like, these guys are at the top of the rankings for, like, weeks and weeks and weeks in a game that was, I think we can all probably generally agree, Brood War was, like, the hardest competitive game ever. Like, it's just one of the most difficult games to be the master of and then hold that spot. So it was pretty absolutely incredible. And I think what made it fun back then was that there was other people that were close enough in skill that it was exciting, because when a guy was in that God mode, it was still interesting because it's not like he absolutely blew everyone away. There were some close calls along the way. It's just they just kept winning. They just kept winning and staying on top. Whereas in StarCraft 2, there have been people that have won several tournaments in a row, and they're considered, like, red hot and on fire. And even, like Steven said, like MVP, Nesty, these guys, like, they're overall like GSL slough of championships. That's pretty cool. But nobody ever rightfully described them as a Bonjwa because they weren't. They were still dropping tournaments. They're still dropping rounds. They were just doing well in general in that period in time.
Okay. Zombie Grub, have you had a chance to watch the last few games where Maru has played in Pro League?
No.
Okay. All right, and that ends our segment about that. We're gonna go now into questions, and then we will wrap up the show.
Excellent.
Let me say real quick before we go into questions. I want to say a huge thank you to, first of all, every guest we've ever had. It's great to have you guys on, and it's definitely why the show is done well. But also to Destiny and Jeff. I was thinking the other day about, like, someone came up to me and was talking to me about some esports thing, and like a potential opportunity, and I was thinking about it. And if I were to ever experience some kind of success through, whatever, I definitely owe you guys a lot. So I really want to say, I genuinely appreciate you guys taking the time to be on the show. Steven, I bribed you with dinner and a beer and asked you to be on the show when I first started it, and you were like,
more than I got, Steven. You lucky son of a bitch.
You didn't even pay for that dinner, did you?
Yeah, I did. I did. I asked him out, and I'm like, we get to dinner, and I'm like, oh, by the way, this dinner kind of comes with a small catch, and it wasn't be on the show. It was just I want to pitch something to you, so I was trying to be transparent. But either way, Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And so now
Thank you.
we're going to move to the questions that have been filtered out by Lupa. So big shout out to him. Would this be a viable way to make StarCraft easier for casual players who can easily follow a build order in a I feel like that question was asked without a Okay. So
Oh, Lupa, you're already fucking fired,
right?
you worthless piece of shit.
So someone mentioned that one of the websites, I think it's SC2 Replay Stats or I can't remember which one, but it does a thing where it puts a build order pop up that you can see while you're playing the game, and it allows you to play and use that build order as you play. And so the person wants to know, would this be a viable way to make StarCraft easier for casual players who can easily follow build orders in games? So basically saying, should Blizzard implement something like this for casual players?
No.
No?
No. I mean, I don't know. I always have like a gut response. I'm trying it, guys. Just bear with me as I try to be more of a patient person. But like this idea that Blizzard is going to create an in-game like build order tutorial for competitive gameplay or single player or something like that is, well, not even single player, excuse me, but like online games. No, it's not going to happen. And those are the kinds of things like you can supplement your own gameplay with. And if you're, I don't know, Steven can shoot me down as the villain, and he can be the White Knight on this one. But like this idea that new players are to be like swept up and coddled and be like, oh, you want to play StarCraft? Like, well, here's exactly how you do it. Play Archon mode. Don't look at the mean comments. Don't look, like that shit. Like, yeah, we're gonna walk that line. We're gonna try to do that because in general we do want new blood, but there has to be a fucking limit. Like at some point you are still playing StarCraft for God's sakes, and like, this can also be, I don't know. It's an interesting idea, but like I'm more interested in people doing that on their own time as opposed to like a game-wide implementation of what Blizzard thinks build orders are, by the way, which don't even get me started on like how that can actually handicap.
Can you imagine
players.
the sample build orders?
Reapers beat Immortals. No.
Like all over the place. Like the meta fucking changes. They implement something else, and then like this newbie player is being told to build from 6 months ago. He's like, oh, I can't make that unit. They removed it from the game, but this is what Blizzard says to do, and like all kinds of problems. So no. But also, guys, I want you to jump into StarCraft. I want you to enjoy yourself. But at some point in time, you're still playing fucking StarCraft, a game where you're going to get brutalized. You're going to get yelled at. You're going to feel terrible. And if you enjoy the up story, the like, I got better, I worked at it, I played with people, I researched information. If you enjoy that, then this is the game you should be playing. You should not be whisked away on a magical carpet up to level 9 GM or something like that, where you're like, what do I do now, world? And like the number 8 player's like, have some free wins! Free wins for everyone! And like everyone's just sharing together and it's loving. No, it's a fucking war game.
Destiny Morrow, Zamiga, any counter thoughts to that?
Make me the villain.
No, I think everyone agrees. Cool. Moving forward. Yeah. What are you guys' thoughts on YouTube gaming? We already talked about that. Thank you. Do you think that there needs to be some kind of change to tank drops?
Fuck tank drops.
Go ahead, Zombie Grub.
I was gonna say no. They seem pretty balanced, but I don't know about macro mechanics, but before that they were pretty balanced.
I'll tell you, in single player, I keep calling it single player. Anyways, in competitive games, ladder, at least in the TVP matchup, it's not that big of a deal. They're really cool. They've shown up a lot less lately. I'm not sure what the meta change was for that to happen. I know that they're still prevalent in TVZ on some level. But in TVT, I think it's actually part of the problem, well, not problem if you will call it that, but in TVT, like it's a lot about Liberators. And Liberators shut down a tank drop fairly decently. So I like it. I do know that in Archon mode, people were having a little bit of trouble with tank drops. But again, that might have been before Liberators as well.
No, I don't think Liberator's that big of a deal, TPT.
Nathaniel disagrees with you. Shut your face, Zombie Grub. Get out. Get out.
Oh no, Nathaniel disagrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, what am I gonna do?
So, yeah, I think it's like the tank with the medvac has pretty much made the tank a whole new unit. So the tank used to be like a very, very positional unit. And this whole new unit is suddenly like a flying siege tank that doesn't give a fuck about any positioning whatsoever. it can pretty much kite everything in the game. The way you shut it down is not with Liberators, by the way, in TVT. You do it with Vikings, but Liberators has a very different role in turn versus turn. But whether or not this is a good change is a bit up to everyone's own opinion. If you guys don't really care about positioning, and then like the way turn versus turn is a very positional game, then you probably like this change. But if you missed the days of siege lines and grabbing positions with turn versus turn, setting up and all that, then you're gonna miss the old siege tank. And I'm gonna go ahead and say that I think the new siege tank in the medevac is actually bad for turn versus turn. I think it was very beautiful the way marine tank worked with each other, the way you wanted to get to some point more quickly than the opponent. If you had a smaller army, you could set up somewhere and you could actually defend a larger army, which would naturally spread out the battles throughout the map. But the way it works right now in marine tank versus marine tank is that you can actually have 5 tanks all in medevacs. You can stim pack your bio and you can run into the opponent's 5 tanks and all his bio. You drop all the tanks at the exact moment that he shoots with his tanks, and you actually have 0 position, like 0 defender's advantage in this situation. And there's pretty much no, like there's so much less of strategy to it, positioning and all that. But of course, the new siege tank, it takes a shit ton of skill to actually pull that off, what I just said. And there's a whole new thing with kiting with siege tank, denying creep tumors and what have you. So you shouldn't approach it as a changed siege tank. I think it's actually, you should approach it as a unit by itself, because that's exactly how exactly different it is. It's a whole new unit. And I think what they should do is when you drop the siege tank, it shouldn't be sieged anymore. Though even though like siege tank harass is pretty awesome, it takes a shit ton of skill. I think it has removed what siege tank was as a unit, and I think that's not very good.
Okay,
To play devil's advocate a little bit, I think to a certain extent you're right, of course, but I like that there is the option for it to be not medevac reliant and still siege tank liney and positional, or it can be very fast with medevacs. I actually really like that there are options and utility, or some would say versatility, you fucking villain. Morrow, I'm on to you. I see what you're doing to my game, and I don't like it. I'm watching you.
So in TVT, we've cast a lot of TVT because a lot of Terrans are making it to the end, so basically BCQD and QXE, and it's super exciting. We've tried TVT in Archon mode, and it is super difficult. Basically, people have to learn that keeping your tanks in siege mode in medevacs is the best way to like just have your army, ready to go. Anyone who has sieged siege tanks not in medevacs is going to be the one that probably loses that fight, even if they're in defensive position. But the only reason that I disagree with like Morrow, because maybe a change to the tank is necessary or make it even better, is that I really feel like Wings of Liberty, Marine Tank versus Marine Tank was the absolute best like positional chess match of all of the matchups. But the fucking like medevac boost really made that matchup personally, and I don't know, watching it too, just about who could boost in the most massive doom drop. So, I mean, sometimes that isn't always the case. We still have beautiful TVTs in Heart of the Swarm, but like if they got that one position, then like usually you were screwed. And Legacy, the Void, if they get tank drops, it's still like in a good position, but your own tank drops on top of their tank drops usually means that it's not an absolute win. So,
I'm piggybacking off both in Control and Atomic was saying, not that I'm trying to just someone agrees with me, I'm ganging up
Steven
on Morrow.
agrees too, by the way, Morrow. Everyone thinks you're wrong. Just so you know.
And then we have, Morrow is a Terran pro gamer. Your opinions doesn't mean shit.
I
It's been a long time since you
just
beat
kidding.
Indra.
Our opinions about
time.
like what's fun to watch though, so like our opinions about what we like to watch is wrong.
Both from how playing and watching, I like the way that tank drops, the ability to pick up a siege tank impacts someone trying to get that aggressive hold. So someone pushes up to your base, they have siege tanks, right? You can take your own tanks and you can counter drop, like you go behind them where they don't have vision, drop on their tank and you can take it out, right? It allows that siege to not be as impactful. Granted, I think a Liberator could do that, but you're more likely to have a siege tank than a Liberator if you're a Liberator with the Armory if you're not going up mech. So that's what I like it in the early game, the impact it has on you getting sieged. You can kind of counter that a little easier than just, oh, they got a great position and you're fucked. Right?
I like it. I like it a lot.
There's another thing here that like if you engage your opponent and he has a bunch of siege tanks, one thing that you can do is that the defender actually picks up all of the siege tanks. He boosts back and backs with his bio, and then he drops his siege tank. So it actually starts to kite your opponent.
Oh, and
So
we
it's
don't
like
like
it's
micro.
not
Fuck.
no, but yeah, it's a lot of micro. So you have pros and cons in control. That's what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's only bad. There's definitely good points and then bad points.
You
Yeah.
And
just
if you like
all
this new
pros for me.
unit way more than you like the old siege tank, then probably.
All pros. All
I
positive
just-
here, Maro. I'm
I wouldn't
eating up
wanna-
your negativity with my positivity.
I wouldn't want to go back to Heart of the Swarm. If anything, like getting rid of like medevac boost again would be like my fix. instead
Yeah,
of,
I was
like-
gonna say it's not like directly related, but I don't understand why medevac boost was ever put in the game.
You guys.
Oh
Hey,
god.
guys, just be careful. Like, just this is where you're at a point in your life right now, where what you just said, you're gonna have Terran players knocking on your door. You take boosting medevacs away from them, the salt,
Jeff, real
Well-
quick before we move to the next question.
it would blot out the sun. I don't even know what to tell you.
Real quick, do you think that a 50% increase upgrade for medevac boost is a thing that's going to destroy the PvP game?
You mean PvT?
Yeah.
No, it's not gonna destroy it, but it's interesting. It's a significant buff. Like sometimes, you know,
it's
I feel like
a nerfing control.
no, it's
Because
What?
they had the other upgrade before that was more relevant.
Oh, drop faster.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, if you count that, but let's pretend that never happened.
Oh.
We're just talking the boost now.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, I think Marlo's the better person to like start with Marlo. Please tell us about the upgrade.
I think it's ridiculous. They're even thinking about buffing medevacs. And the reason for that is because Terran, everything since the game came out, or actually ever since Harvest Swarm, to be fair, has always been so centric around
Yeah.
playing bio and dropping with bio. And I think pushing that to be even stronger than it is now is not gonna allow for more options. If anything, it's just gonna restrict a lot of gameplay, not
Yeah.
only from Terran, but from the other races as well. If anything, I think medevac dropping should actually be nerfed.
Oh my god, I
I-
totally agree.
The only thing I was going to contribute, which was not going to be that much, is just that like in a big picture kind of way, I get behind a lot of the changes they make, and I find that if I have a strong response, oftentimes after I play it a little bit more, I'm like, okay, this makes more sense. This one's a hard sell for me because I do agree with Maro. It's like they're like, you know, we really need to figure out some way to make Terran a little bit better since we took mules away. Let's boost the thing that is like the fucking medevac is the core unit to begin with. It's the absolute centric, like everything good stems from this. So you're not encouraging too much diversity. They're like, now Terran players will drop more. It's like, well,
Yeah.
actually they're probably doing as much of that as possible as it is. But it'll
It's,
be faster and it'll hit harder. It's like, well, it hits pretty fast and pretty fucking hard already. Like, the change is just a little bit more of already what they're doing, which seems boring but also too strong. And so
They have
weird.
like a lazy way of approaching like buffs sometimes though. Like all the speed buffs have been really odd. They buffed War Prism speed. At one point they wanted to buff DT's speed. They buffed Oracle speed. They want to buff medevac speed even more. It seems like their band-aids fixed to like, well, some things isn't being used that much, or just make it like faster instead of more interesting.
But that's what's weird. The medevac is used literally as much as it possible. Like all three matchups across the board. the
Yeah,
medevac-
I don't get that one at all.
It's
They
there.
really want to make the reactor well they actually changed the name of it, so they just want to make the upgrade on the starport useful
So
for medevacs apparently.
the reason I brought that up is because I had a discussion with Protoss with what it was. I think it was Gemini and someone else, and basically they said that this is going to ruin TVP because it's going to force Protoss to spread their shit around multiple bases. But in most games, it's not the interaction where a Protoss has to counter a medevac in like the first 3 seconds of the medevac being around the Protoss. It's going to get feedbacked or it's going to get blinked under and be taken out. Like the ability for it to go further, because it's not making it go faster, just the ability for it to go further for, 50% more of the time, that's really not going to affect if you take into consideration how medevacs usually interact with Protoss, right?
Yeah, that's
Just
why I
means-
said that
yeah.
that the prior upgrade was actually a lot better for dropping in general. So
Cool.
this is a nerf overall, but it's ridiculous they're even thinking about buffing medevacs.
All right, let's see.
What makes it especially scary, by the way, is like that update patch that came out with. They're like, we're thinking about ways to nerf photon overcharge. We noticed that that's something that's a little bit too much, and it's like, I get that. I know a lot of Terran players in particular really hate photon overcharge, but if you couple like an extended boost and also like a nerfed photon overcharge, it's like at some point,
I mean,
what in the fuck are you doing? Like, allow us to force field the sky. Let us force field the sky. Let force fields be
Oh, God.
instantly tall. Like a medevac comes in, you just like throw up force fields. Like, boom.
I really doubt that people even get the freaking upgrade though, right? So like, yeah, it would have been scary if it was like a default upgrade, but who's gonna get a tech lab on a starport versus Protoss just to get that upgrade?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. People won't use the new upgrade. The old upgrade, people didn't upgrade, but
They need to give
was
us the,
probably good. It was probably good.
The hardest one beta upgrade, where like the laser beam, like the lighted laser beams from the medevac, they healed like 50% faster. Do you guys not remember that?
Yeah,
No, we
red-
need that
red-
back.
red-
Everyone will get that one.
Red
What-
healing ray.
When I first started StarCraft, Heart of the Swarm, I thought that if you boosted while you were being healed, that also increased it.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the next question. What is an appropriate Zerg unit composition to beat Liberator Mech Push? My efforts to beat this have been embarrassing so far. Maro, do you do Liberator Mech Pushes? If so, what is the way that you've had that countered best?
I haven't like played too much, but the way you beat the Liberators, like they pretty much destroy anything that walks into the circle. So you need to think a way to eliminate them in a different way. So you wanna flank against Liberator. If you can't do that, Viper Pulse are really good. If you clump up Liberators, then the parasitic bomb, is it called that?
Mhm.
Is really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can also use Corruptors. They won't take much damage from the rest of the mech, unless he has Cyclones, of course. But that's nerfed now too. So, there are a lot of options that you can do against Liberators. But if the unit is balanced or not, I'm not sure. But like the tools, just use the tools that you probably should be using.
I wonder if he meant whoever asked Liberator Hellbat push, because that was some Zergs thought it was literally unbeatable, as
Mhm.
opposed to just a regular mech Liberator push. Because late game mech Liberator, all those things that Mara just said, work perfectly fine. That early game one's a little more difficult, and some people still don't know that Ravagers are actually surprisingly good against it. Like
You
Bly,
have to
they
immediately
showed it up.
react with your Liberator to not get taken out. 3 shots
Yeah.
from a, you have 3 Ravagers and bam, stun.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see. Lots of big questions, so we're almost done. All right. I don't know. Jeff, how does the macro change affect Archon mode?
It makes the the macro player a lot more boring, I guess. But
It does. 100%.
I guess would allow a macro player with good multitasking to now be more apart, especially someone like.
that already is going to happen. But
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on. All right. How do you feel about the automated tournaments? Have you guys had a chance to take part in any?
No,
sorry,
I haven't played.
What was the question?
Have you, automated tournaments? What do you think of them? Have
Oh.
you had a chance to take part in any?
No, I think we talked about this, and I'm just of the same opinion where it's just like it's just another thing that for some people it's going to be the whole reason they buy the game, and it's awesome. It's just as long as it gets managed, which from our talks with Blizzard, they absolutely this is a thing that they're going to support and make pretty awesome as time goes on, and they're willing to look at ways to improve it as time goes on. So like it's just overall great. Will I play any personally? Probably not that many, but I already thought about like the idea of doing it with subscribers and like kind of making it better for streaming and stuff like that
Mhm.
too. So it's just cool. It's just a great thing.
Yeah. They are going to buff it, sorry, that's the wrong word. They are going to add new features to it. They said that in the blue post, and that, since they said that, we can say, that we talked about it at the summit. We saw this. So the automated tournaments, they are going to go places. I'm really excited to see where they go, the final product. But for right now, I think this is them trying to work out the bugs in the software. They just created this system. They want to see how it interacts, and then of course get your feedback from the community about what you think about participating in them. And it also, if you didn't know this, you get MMR adjustments based on your performance in a tournament. There are people getting promoted out of a
Not
tournament.
just MMR, but oh yeah, I was gonna say you actually get ladder points. I heard.
Yeah. So people are getting promoted out of turns, which is kind of cool. Like, you spend however long it takes to do these, 1v1 matches or best of ones, out of what, 16 or 8 people? I can't remember how many it is. But that's well worth it for your time. I think that alone is a good incentive. Anyway, I think we're at the end of one last question. Zombie Grub.
What?
You got to cast with everyone. What were the best parts about casting with Livy B, Crank, and Rifkin?
Okay, so the best part.
Follow-up question: what was the worst? And
Yeah, I was
probably
about to
more
say, like, are you
interesting?
really asking what's the worst?
Well, I think it means, like, specifically per person, what was the best about each?
Livy B.
Yeah.
I'll answer for Zongrove. Livy B had
Oh, okay.
really, really good smelling hair, and every time she leaned in and sniffed it, just
I think we're painting a sapphic picture that I didn't intend for on this show.
Go ahead, Zombie Grove.
So from Rifkin, it was really funny being able to basically punch him or whatever whenever something stupid happened. It's like, or like we just got goofy on stream and it was a lot more fun in person. For Livy B, it was really awesome that we got all like the Terran and Zerg matchups. So we really had a lot of fun, like actually talking about our races and pretending to be like totally biased towards either one. And then for Crank, it was amazing because of course he was just a pro gamer and like knew a bunch of stuff. So if you ever had dead silence, I'd always be like, Crank, what would you do as the pro gamer? And you'd be able to answer.
All right.
Pretty legit.
And then just in the future, when you guys ask questions in the Reddit, just try to make it more interesting. Like, what was the worst part, or which caster did you like the least? Those are the questions Zombie Grub should be answering live on air in front of thousands of people. That's what I want to know.
All right. That's going to wrap up the show for today. First of all, let's get the goodbyes from the awesome guests. Thank you guys for coming. Morrow, you want to give your shout-outs and tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite to the show. I certainly had a good time. You can follow me at Morrow. I'm also streaming at Twitch TV/Morrow.
Any shout-outs to your teammate? To your teammate Naniwa, who's still on your team or is not on your team?
No shout-outs for him. I don't do that.
Is that a confirmation or?
Maybe. Wait, is it? I don't know.
I think InControl is referencing is Naniwa still on team property?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
that's,
saw a post with it.
But I'll let you guys speculate about that.
You son of a bitch, Morrow.
Wow.
All right.
Theoretically, the show has 4,508 viewers if you combine Destiny's stream and our stream.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, they're listening.
All right, cool. Thank you, Mark, for coming on. It was good to have you. I hope to have you again. Zombie Grub, not unfamiliar with joining the show. Glad to have you back in America. Want to give your shout-outs?
Just follow me on Twitter at ZGGaming and on Twitch, Zombie Grub, and of course follow BaseTradeTV, twitch.tv/BaseTradeTV.
Sweet, sweet. Hey, Destiny, can your fans, can your people listening or watching your stream hear us?
Yeah.
Cool. InControl, you want to give your shout-outs?
Just thanks as always for tuning in. Thank you to our guests, of course. Like hanging out with you guys. I do think that Morrow, if I had to rate your performance in the show, I'd give it like a 6.5 out of 10, maybe. I think that trolly, super comedic Morrow on Twitter is probably, I think that's the best Morrow. I think that is.
This was a serious show, though. We had a serious discussion.
You think Lycan's show is serious?
Yeah,
Serious
it's fucking.
business.
Every time I tune in.
Did you see the opening where Destiny turns into a desk and he's like a fucking wolf thing or some shit? Like, do you see it? Do you ever watch like CNN or something like that where they're like, tonight on Dateline, but it's like it's like Care Bears falling out of an aircraft carrier, turning into elephants, and then farting into an ocean. Like But it's okay, Maro. Like, there'll be more opportunities, and certainly we'll see you on Remax. So
I was very proud of that idea of Steven turning into the desk. I was very.
yeah,
I
you
thought
guys
it was...
are fucking weird, is what's happening here, and I'm still not in that, by the way. You need to make me a footstool or something.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, I did a video on my thoughts. Check that out. It's on my YouTube, which is Control TV. I'm gonna stream after this. It'll be Legacy of the Void, and that's it. Thank you.
Cool, Steven.
Maro's actually awesome, by the way. I love the guy. Oh my god.
Dude, I'm fucking upset, man. 6.5. I can do so much better, man.
You can. Strive to do better.
Next time I'll bring my comedy material. Okay.
The new skit you've been working on, some of those.
I'll bring a clown nose.
Or Maro is just losing his touch because he's poisoned by the rotten potato behind his computer.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think scary, Maro. It's gonna get up and kill you one day.
Yes.
Steven?
I wish I could just get rid of it.
You're committed. You took money from the community. You can't fucking get rid of that potato until you die.
I know that.
Yeah. All right, Steven.
Shout out to all of my fans and all of the fans of the late game, and Lycan for his heartfelt thanking of me and In Control being here. I love you too, buddy. Guys, make sure that you buy my shirt. It's only available for like 6 or 7 more hours. Destiny.gg/shirt. It's very fucking important that you get that. I will be at PAX Prime. I might go to TwitchCon. But if I'm at either one of those and you try to walk up to me and you're not wearing my shirt, I will slap the shit out of you.
Wait. First of all, link in the chat for people.
It's just Destiny.gg/shirt.
Yeah.
I'll type the link. Oh my god. Oh, there goes my fucking timings now. There you go, buddy.
Oh, and there's how many hours left? 5 hours, 6 minutes.
5 hours and 6 minutes. Holy fuck.
That's a pretty dang shirt. You guys got to jump on that. Anyway, thank you, Steve, for coming. You're going to PAX Prime? Cool. Check out Senpai at PAX Prime. And lastly, myself. Guys, look, this is the last time I'm going to ever fucking beg for it. In a way, from future, it'll just be a normal plug. But I am so fucking close to 2,000 Twitter followers. Like, I can feel my relevance just fucking getting there, man. So make me relevant. There are 2,000 people watching this, 2,000 people watching Destiny's. I just need 10 of you to go to @LycanGTV on Twitter, save esports, and fucking follow me. That's all I have. Thank you guys for coming. It was great working with you tomorrow. So I'm glad to have you back in Control Destiny. Best co-host a scrub could have. And we will see you all next week for episode 40. Have a good weekend or week.
Bye.
Time. Bye.
Bye.
Good show, guys. See ya.